Welcome to your virtual wellness fair, Sugar River. As we embark on our year of living well, this is the fourth of 8 videos we release each Wednesday with a new guest, and today we're going to discuss strength, stress resilience. Make sure you stay to the end to get your crossword puzzle clue. As a reminder, we will be drawing after with all of those complete for prizes. One of those prizes is this great artwork of the Living Compass logo that reminds you to keep an eye on yourself in wellness all year long. So with that, we'll go to the interview. Hello, Sugar River. My name is Elizabeth Yanke, and I am joined by Pastor Ben Wakefield from Indianapolis, Indiana, and he is pastor of Lynhurst Baptist Church. He's also president of the MSD Wayne Township School Board. Pastor Ben, we are delighted to have you with us. We're going to be talking about strength, stress resilience. And the Living Compass initiative talks about this as, how every day we make decisions about stresses in our lives and how we become resilient with that. And we bounce back from those changes. Before we get too far into it, Pastor Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and your church and where you're at.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm pastoring at Lynhurst Baptist Church here on the west side of Indianapolis now, 12 years in. I have a wonderful wife of over 15 years, Jen Wakefield, and 3 kids, 2 girls, and the baby of the family, a 4-year-old boy. Both mom and boy both have COVID right now. So as we talk about stress, that's going on right now too. And it happened right when we decided to start remodeling our 1 bathroom. So I'm now sharing a bathroom with a 10-year-old and 8-year-old girl. So I don't know what they do in there, but wow.
Wow. You've got a lot going on. So maybe you are the right person to talk to about this issue. We are in this time, February 2022, we're at a stressful point in everyone's life who's alive today, right? And the pandemic seems to keep going. Inflation is up. We live in this political divide. People are stuck in their homes. They've got limited social interaction for the better part of the last 2 years. What kind of tools do you suggest that people kind of reach out for when they're dealing with stress in their lives? And do you have any go-to for yourself of things that you use to bring yourself back to center?
I mean, that's a great question. And I think I would just start with the importance of doing what you did before, maybe in new ways. So part of my just kind of history is when I was in high school, I started experiencing some panic attacks. And one thing I did with help, my mom really helped guide me in this, was just start exercising on a regular basis. And I recognize that really helped. Now, when the pandemic happened, my gym closed, everything closed.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was just, we didn't know what was happening. And 1 week turned to 2 weeks, and 2 weeks, as everybody knows. But what I have found, at least for me, that's helpful is exercise has always been something I've always done. So somehow I needed to get back to that. It was going to be different, obviously. I always had a hard time working out at home, but there was really no other option at that point. So with very little equipment, I just decided to wake up early and start putting that back into my routine. And it was hard to start. I mean, you think someone who's been working out regularly for years and years and years, just after a few weeks break, wouldn't be that hard to get back in, but it was just so difficult to get back in. It just seemed like it was adding stress at first. But once I started finally get back in the routine, it became a stress reliever and not a stress builder. But it was almost like you had to take 2 steps back to get that step forward. Thinking about, when you're on a swing, you got to go back. The further back you go, the further forward you go. And it was like, it took a lot of effort to get working out again. And it just seemed like, okay, I'm going backwards, not forward. But once I was able to get in that rhythm, it was able to propel me forward more. So I know for me, going back to those things that I did before that were healthy, putting those back into my rhythms was really important. And then also trying to find something new. Being quiet time is so important to me. But when you have 3 kids and you're all in the house all the time, and you're working online, your wife's working online, they're doing school online, there is no quiet. And so our family started to do walks and around the neighborhood, and the kids ran ahead, and we just kept an eye on them. But of course, just getting outside, getting out of the prison. Your house becomes a prison so fast. You get stuck in your house, you get stuck in your mind, you get stuck in your feelings. It's like, and even on bad weather, we just forced ourselves to go outside. And no matter how bad the weather was, it always felt good when we came back in. And so we were able to use that in our routine. And I think that was huge, is try to establish a routine. We woke up, we did our online school, we did our work, we went for a walk, we had our lunch. It was quiet time. For us, it was important just to have some kind of routine to keep us going. Routine takes away the brain work, right? When you do the same thing, you don't have to think, you just do it. And even though it sounds like sitting in your bed and doing nothing is a great break, for a while it is, but there's no routine in it. So everything you do, you have to make a decision to do. Even when you decide to get up and get some food, you have to make that decision. But when everything's a routine, you stop using your brain so much, and then you're able to experience a little bit of rest. Even though you might be doing more, you're thinking less, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does, actually. We did talk through the topic of rest and play a few weeks ago, and so that ties in nicely with what we're talking about in these 8 dimensions of wellness.
I lived in the same neighborhood for 10 years, and I'm a very sociable person.
Yeah.
I am now friends. I moved now since then. I'm no longer in the house I was a year ago, but
Okay.
I'm now friends with my neighbors back then, after not being friends with them for 10 years, because we were going for walks every day, and people were like,
Right.
who are these people walking by our house every day? Let's say hi. And it was amazing.
That's great. That's great. And one of the things that I think people use to get through difficult times are having that support network, right? And that's a great segue to this. How do you what does your support network look like for people around you, and how do you know who to invite into your support network?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm very blessed at the church I'm at to have people in the church that are friends. Sometimes it's even advised pastors to be careful about having friends within the church. But my wife and I, we moved 300 miles away, and while social media is great and phones are great, we were looking for friends, and the most natural place was here. And so just truly thankful for that. Couple of older pastors who became friends of mine, and kind of like I call them my sponsors. I say, you guys are my sponsors. We didn't start out that way, but I know I can tell them anything, and they will just hear it, and they might, usually they just listen. Sometimes they might offer a tip or two, but that's been so helpful. And even when we started going through all this, I emailed one of them. He used to be the pastor here, actually, before I was. I said, Jay, what are we going to read? I go, we're stuck home. Let's read something together and talk about it. And so we went on a book binge reading, and it was great because we were talking about it together. Sometimes virtually, sometimes email, but to be able to have that was so important. And again, I think unfortunately, I think people are more lonely than they've been before.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it almost goes back to when I was talking about working out, is we've been so secluded. Now it's going to take extra work to stretch and make those connections or reconnections. And it's just so hard for us, because while we're used to starting stress at 0. During COVID, we start the day at 50.
Yeah.
So people even joke, there's memes, oh, I don't like people, or dogs are so much easier. Well, yeah, dogs are easier because you give them a treat and they love you. You can't do that with people. I mean, you can do that with me, but you can't do that with everybody. And so I think people are just so exhausted. It's so hard for them to reach out for those friendships and those connections. But if you can find the energy to do that, it pays back eventually. But it is an effort. It feels like, you're pushing up that boulder up a mountain, and we're going to have to quarantine again, right? And we're going to have to start all over. But if you don't have those friendships, it's just, it's so exhausting. I've just been blessed to have a church and have those 2 sponsors that I've stayed in contact, and we've done different things throughout that.
Yeah. So Ben, tell us a little bit about the volunteer work that you're doing with the church, and some of the interesting programs and things that you've been helping out your community during this stressful time.
Yeah, so our church has always been, even before I was here, just very involved in the community. It's just kind of the heart of the people. They want to help their neighbors the best they can. So a few things. We've been doing a meal, a Wednesday night meal where people are coming and eating. We had to stop that, but the volunteers is like, we can't just stop feeding people. It's like, well, we can't come in and eat. So I've gone back to my fast food roots, and we are doing drive-through meals for the last almost 2 years now. And no matter how bad the weather is, the volunteers are just like, no, we're still doing it. So it was like negative whatever wind chills last Wednesday, and they were outside doing that. So that was a lot of fun. So an old ministry, that just kind of adapted and is kind of new and interesting in that way. Our recovery group, we do a Christ-centered recovery group. That's been really huge. We took a break with that along with worship when COVID first hit, but we realized how important it was to try to get back to that in a safe way. And unfortunately, that of all the people that we minister to, that group was the hardest hit mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And we're real just still climbing out of that hole. And then right now we're working with it's a separate nonprofit called Circle City Villages that was just started to build 18 tiny homes on the church's property in a community building for those who are struggling with homelessness. And so it's been a long process of zoning and rezoning and getting community buy-in. And unfortunately, some people who try to get the message out by saying we were opening a homeless camp. It's like, it's not a camp. We're not camping. There's no fires. They're actual homes. So it was work that almost took person by person conversations. Every time we had a community group come in, one person would get riled up and another person would get riled up, and then when you calm them down, then another person would get riled up. Then COVID hit, and it was almost a blessing because we had to talk to people individually. And when people came mad, I can't believe you're building a homeless camp in our neighborhood, or said, oh, well, tell us your concerns, tell us your worries. And then we would tell them what they're doing. And by that time they'd be exhausted and they'd be like, oh, they could actually listen. And they'd say, I see what you're doing now, and I can get behind that. And so there was a drastic difference when we had to start meeting one-on-one and people saying, I get it now. Almost everybody we talked to changed against to for, or if they're against, they said, I may not be for it, but I won't stand against you in that. And so it's been long work and slow work with the city shut down and trying to get zoning going and all that. But we are slowly moving forward. And my birthday's coming up, so I'm putting on Facebook, give money to, cause. And so I'm going to say, give to Circle City Villages for my birthday. So
great. Yeah. Just another question I have for you is you personally, how does your spiritual life play into getting you through hard times? Is there Is there a verse that you rely on, or a passage that you think about when you are stressed or dealing with tough things?
Uh, one thing that I do think about often is, since I'm in this Christ recovery group, is the serenity prayer.
Hmm.
Lord, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know difference. There's actually a
Yeah.
whole other part to
Yes.
that prayer
Yes.
that is so awesome that we leave out.
I
Taking
agree.
this world as it is,
Hmm.
not the way I would have it. Trusting that you'll make all things right if I surrender to your will. That's so beautiful. I just had this conversation with someone, when my wife got COVID. They go, oh, because I got a retreat with coming up, and they go, what if you get COVID? What if you can't go? What? I go, then I can't go. I can't control that.
Yeah.
Um, but the more I pray in my spiritual life, the less I end up saying, actually. And so what's been really important, and I didn't really notice this at first, but spending a lot more time in just in silent prayer, and that really did start with COVID. Just breathing and just focusing on God's presence, and I might have a small passage or a small phrase, but eventually that would just go, and it would just be me breathing and trying to really just let go and let God bring into that time
Hmm.
what I needed, instead of me bringing to God what I thought I need. And so, as I've been doing that, I notice in the day when I get stressed, instead of saying a prayer now, or instead of saying a verse, most of the time I take a deep breath, and it has that deep spiritual power of reminding me God is here. God will give me what I need,
Hmm.
and I can let go. Now, I am journeying with a few other people of memorizing a verse a week, and so with my breath, I am using that verse, because it's not about memorizing; it's about praying. So
Hmm.
there is a different verse I'm praying uh, each week with them, and it's 1 Corinthians 16. 13 right now. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong. And so I'll throw that in with my breathing now too.
That's great. That's good to hear. It's been a blessing, and thank you for being available to talk with us about stress resilience, and we're going through this virtual wellness fair um, online, and we're all kind of online at this moment, and in person. It's a hybrid world.
Yes. Yeah.
um,
Well,
do
thank
you?
you
Yeah.
for reaching out. I really appreciate it. And, it's, um, I think that's what we really need to focus on, is stress and loneliness,
Mm,
and loss of connection. And
mm.
I wish I had a magic answer, but I just assure people it's worth reaching out to each other. It's worth reaching out. It's worth reaching out. It's hard. It's uncomfortable right now, but it's worth it.
Thank you, Pastor Ben Wakefield, for your time and words of wisdom on stress resilience. And it is now time for our crossword puzzle clue. The clue for this week is 7 down. Pay blank to what you pay blank to. Again, pay blank to what you pay blank to. It's a favorite saying from the Living Compass program. Again, you'll find the crossword puzzle in the eSource along with another clue. Make sure you watch and read to collect all the clues from the 8 weeks of our virtual wellness fair. Turn in your complete puzzle for a chance to win a prize in the final drawing. Join us in person or online Sundays at 9:30 a.m. for our weekly worship. Thank you for joining us on this adventure in the year of living well.